It's time to talk politics with our man in the nose, Sam Dastyari. Hello, Sam.
G'day. How are you?
Mate, good. It was a big political story on 60 Minutes this week involving branch stacking, this time within the Liberal Party. Let's take a look at some of the report from 60 Minutes.
Is Marcus Bastian a branch stacker?
I would say yes, but that's only through rumours. These new members openly state that not only are they unwilling to help the Liberal Party in winning elections through volunteering, but some of them have told me that they may not even vote Liberal at the ballot box.
They're fake members.
Yes.
The couple that disclosed to you they weren't perhaps even interested in voting for the Liberal Party despite wanting to become members, they were from the Mormon Church.
That's my understanding, is yes, they were.
Well, during the report, it was claimed Federal Minister Kevin Andrews was in on the scheme.
Is it plausible that Kevin Andrews did not know that he was employing as parliamentary staffers people who were in fact factional hacks for Marcus Bastian and Michael Sukkar?
Well, it's not plausible to me. If the person in charge of the office doesn't know what they're doing on what seems to be a pretty organised and time-consuming basis, well, I'd eat my hat.
Sam, the Liberal Party made a lot of noise when 60 Minutes exposed branch stacking within the Victorian Labor Party. How have they reacted to these allegations?
Well, look, firstly, branch stacking is a disease, and it's a disease in Australian politics, and you have it in both sides of politics, and everyone kind of knew that from the start. You're right, about 3 weeks ago, or more like 6 weeks ago now, there was a big expose on 60 Minutes on Labor Party. Obviously, they followed that up with one on the Conservative side. These things normally have a bit of a cycle, right? And it's interesting. Just forget about the incident itself. I'm also fascinated, if you want the deep political analysis, on what goes on straight after.
Yeah.
So straight away, the first rule you try and do in politics is you do a damage assessment, and you say to yourself, what can we get away with? Is this so big that we have to act immediately? So the first thing the Prime Minister does is generally step one is try and make it someone else's problem. So the PM starts off by saying, this is a matter for the Victorian Liberal Party. I've heard people say, it's a matter for the New South Wales Labor Party, or it's a matter for these people, or a matter for that people. So the first thing you try and do when you come into these kinds of scandals is try and limit your own accountability and responsibility, and you try and palm it off somewhere else. The second thing you do when that doesn't work is try and create a process. And that can be I've referred it to police, it's a matter for police, I can't possibly comment. Or in this case, there'll be an independent review by some organisation or another, this time by the Department of Finance, yada yada. Then the third thing that ends up happening, if the stories keep coming out and there's a weight of this, it becomes that was someone on a frolic of their own, that had nothing to do with us, that was terrible, blah, blah, blah. We're not there yet. Then you get to the fourth stage, which is the look, there's a huge problem. It's them. It's not me. It's a disaster down in Victoria, and I'm the one who's going to clean it up. Yeah. Now, they're the kind of four stages you go through. We're kind of at stage 2 at the moment. You can normally see it with every scandal. You saw this in the sports rorts one, for instance, that kind of got to the third stage, step 3, which was the minister getting sacked. I suspect this probably has the likelihood of getting to a 3 out of 4. Which is I think Kevin Andrews, the old bloke there, long-term Liberal kind of MP, I suspect he'll be told not to run again. But the one who's probably really in trouble is the young Assistant Treasurer, a guy called Michael Sukkar, who's a kind of up-and-coming right-wing power broker down there in Victoria. He has some
kills
fairly
his power
unfriendly...
base, right? Because he's now tainted.
Yes, it does. But more important than that, these things always there's a bit of a flood impact of this. So the doors get opened, right? A couple of stories have come out. There was another, I think, front page of The Age today, or I don't know if it was on the front, certainly front of them online, about, him misusing an allowance to hire another mate for a printing job. Yeah, these things start, and when they start, they normally don't stop. So it'll be... Andrews is old and he's on the way out anyway. He's going to be put to pasture. That branch stacking guy, Marcus Bastian, and their kind of Mormon kind of wing of the Liberal Party they were branch stacking with, that's all done and decimated. All eyes in Canberra are on Michael Sukkar to see whether or not an actual cabinet minister is going to get sunk by this.
So, Sam, you talked about it's kind of cyclic.
Cyclical, yep.
Yes. Can this ever actually be stopped, and should we even expect that from our politicians?
Look, there is a way of stopping it, but it's not a very popular position. Frankly, the way you stop branch stacking is by opening up the process. The Americans did it. That really means going down to almost a primary style model, which is what obviously the Americans did. That brings itself its own challenges, right? If you have a primary style model, which means that you essentially have an open candidate selection process involving the two political parties. The danger is that the political parties lose control, and you will get a Donald Trump or someone every once in a while. But I could argue, even though I'm certainly not a fan of his, he took over the Republican Party. I mean, the RNC convention's on at the moment, and they're only going to have one issue on the platform, and that is, one matter, which is we endorse Donald Trump. So he will take over. You do risk that from a political party control perspective, but so what? I mean, I don't agree with him, but you could argue that Donald Trump was the right candidate for the Republican Party the last election because he won, right? I mean, what other test is there bar that? So I think the solution is a completely open, transparent candidate selection process. I don't think that's an immensely popular position, though.
I would tend to say that there's issues at the moment is that it happens on both sides of politics. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about branch stacking. Can voters actually trust our elected officials anymore? I mean, this seems to be the biggest issue. We all think it's great that we have the power to go in and vote for who we want to vote for. But these days, it makes us really wonder whether or not we're voting for the right people.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think part of the difference is there's obviously has been in the past 10, 20 years a bit more transparency too. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I think this thing's been going on forever. And you're right, because the stakes are so high. You're talking about federal seats in parliament, you're talking about governments. And the reality is that in the past, 40 years of elections, bar one or two landslide ones, they've been won or lost by a handful of seats. So in essence, parties picking their candidates in safe electorates has a way bigger determination on who is going to be in Parliament than the community themselves. With the model we have with gerrymandering that comes about by redistributions, what it really means is there's only at maximum 20 seats at play in a federal election. So let's say the House of Representatives has 150 people in it. Only 20 will ever change over an election. 130 are really just whoever the parties put up.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben,